Sometimes you get in big trouble if you're smart aleck, but it's like, okay, maybe you should be a philosopher if you're smart aleck. It's like Socrates was very smart aleck.
It's not that you should suppress emotions like the small s stoic, but bring some discipline to your emotions.
Your beliefs are what lead to emotion. So by the time you're having an emotion, like you feel jealous or angry, it's too late.
The responsibility with Buddhism is to alleviate suffering.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And with Stoicism is, doing the right thing when and where you can, like at the right time.
The women I like to be around are very stoic.
Yeah, I love that.
Stoicism is suggesting that you can feel comfortable with yourself like a sister to everyone on the planet. And that's so much better, I think, than take care of yourself all the time. You.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care of your soul. You don't need to care about whatever external.
You don't have to take care of your hair. Take care of your soul. Maybe your kids too. And
I'm really happy to be having Jennifer Baker here with us for the Feminine Stoic. Yeah, I got really into her interviews with Ryan Holiday on the Daily Stoic. Jennifer is a professor at the College of Charleston, teaching virtue ethics, Stoicism, business ethics, and political theory, amongst other topics. She has written a book herself as a co-author on the economics and the virtues with Mark White, and she is currently working on a new book on Stoic economics. And she has a number of articles on Psychology Today. Welcome to the Feminine Stoic. This upcoming book features 365 women who naturally embody the essence of Stoicism, without having necessarily heard of it. The idea was inspired by The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. I had CPTSD, and my friend John told me to check it out. I was like, no, thank you. I thought it was something just for strong, silent men. And I honestly love being girly. He said it has nothing to do with gender, and he sent me a copy of the book. Well, a free PDF version anyways. I forgot about it for a year, then I reached such a low point that I figured, why not? Of course, I ended up loving it, and it actually did change my life. I'm still not the best at being stoic, but it's helped a lot. That being said, I easily saw that all 365 days of the Daily Stoic feature men. And while that's great, I wanted to bring this book to women and girls too, since Stoicism is for everyone. So yes, hi Jen.
Hi.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Hi to everybody.
So yeah, I sent you some questions beforehand, but yeah, I would love to kind of jump right into it. Get your thoughts on one of these quotes from Marcus Aurelius. Does the light of a lamp shine and keep its glow until its fuel is spent? Why shouldn't your truth, justice, self-control shine until you are extinguished?
Yeah, I love that you sent that to me because it was evidence of how much Stoicism I've internalized, because I was like, yeah, obviously. So I had to think about who would disagree. But I guess anyone who had, I'll call them like conventional views about the goods in life, they might think that old age is a time when you don't have them. So you don't have your youth, you don't have your beauty, you don't have the same amount of energy at a certain point. And so those are just lost. And then the Stoics, of course, think your happiness comes from your intentions and understanding and the things you believe and then enact. So that can be done to the very, very end. In fact, Seneca has some line to a friend that suggests like maybe the last thing you could do is be helping someone else.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, life is a long time. There's no need to, I guess end it early, as you say, like stop being stuck at a certain.
End it early.
And the way I also interpreted the quote was, there's no need to be intermittent about it. Like, one of the reasons why I'm happy to have you here too is, you were so enthusiastic and friendly about joining us with the Feminine Stoic, even though we are still in the midst of writing the book and we don't, we can't offer, fame and, a lot of viewership. But still, that didn't stop you from, joining this podcast and, shining your light on a topic you're very passionate about. So I thought that was really great.
Yeah, I mean, that's one good thing I think about philosophy is we love sharing it. It's meant to be participatory, so it helps us to talk it through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like, I'll talk about this later too, but I reach all different types of people, including, yeah, more women and girls who I think a lot don't realize that they can be, introduced to Stoicism in the same way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It has Stoicism has a marketing problem.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so I'm glad you can be help with this marketing and help be the solution. Nice. And then, yeah, another quote that I wanted your thoughts on was also from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. It says, meditate often on interconnectedness and mutual interdependence of all things in the universe. For in a sense, all things are mutually woven together and therefore have an affinity for each other. For one thing follows after another according to the tension of movement, their sympathetic stirrings, and the unity of all substance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there. I looked up the Greek word translated as meditate, and some translators just say reflect upon, think about. And I do want to recommend young women and women who are interested in Stoicism study ancient Greek because it actually, especially if you like the passages, it can make one passage a very rich experience. I don't have a proclivity for language, so other people would be better at it than I was, but it's very fun. And if the passages are really moving to you, it just gives it so many layers. But I ignorantly thought that meditate might mean meditate in the sense the Buddhists meant meditate, and it does not. So I was excited about a potential connection there. But if you think on the interconnectedness of all of us, it can sound like just a light suggestion or something poetic, but it's supposed to mean for the Stoics something very heavy for us as agents, kind of regardless of the metaphysics of it. You're supposed to not be surprised by anything happening to you that happens to other people. And you're also supposed to, as a goal, have a feeling of friendship with others. I think one translation has friendship and the sympathy you have with all others. And those can be very practical in any moment when you're making a decision. And they're also, I mean, not every philosophy maintains those things. So I really like that about Stoicism because I think people do feel better about themselves when they feel like a brother or sister to everybody else. And one thing that's at odds with in our culture, I run into this a lot. Individualism is its own philosophy. So, the term was coined in like the 1800s, and it was a big deal. And Americans were really known for it. Emerson and Thoreau were known for promoting individualism. And the way I explain it to my students is that individualism will complement originality, like how authentic you are. So maybe if you play guitar and you're self-taught, we're more proud of you. We're more impressed. But ancient Stoicism does not have that element in it. So I always use as an example, my daughters are trained in, I guess, church singing. So they do the same drills and lessons as people did hundreds of years ago. So that's not individualistic. But the Stoics would think that was very good training.
Yeah, to all of your points, I wanted to comment and kind of ask you some more questions. One of them was you had mentioned, learning Greek could be a fun way to kind of play on that interconnectedness and just get a little bit more excited on Stoicism. And I remember from your podcast with Ryan Holiday how you had talked about the opposite with Latin and how a lot of people who learn Latin, like by just through the process of it, learn Stoicism and other philosophies.
Yeah.
Yes, how that all ties together too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's a beautiful experience I didn't really appreciate, but just getting to be that slow with the words and the meanings is pretty nice. I notice new Stoics online, they get kind of nervous because they think they have to just rely on different translations. So they focus a lot on like which translation. And it's like, well, you could take, we've got these wonderful professors who teach ancient Greek. I mean, it's some of the best teaching I've ever seen. And so I would encourage people to take advantage of that. Now, you might not read much Stoicism in an ancient Greek language course, but you'd be able to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fantastic. And then, yeah, like in terms of just having everything connect together, you teach at the College of Charleston. And I think you mentioned in something that you were in before that you also teach at high schools.
Yeah, I haven't done it this year, but I volunteer with My Community's Keeper, which is this wonderful organization run by Case Smalls here. And I've taught at Title I schools as a volunteer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know if we get into Stoicism. We work on critical thinking, and I'll talk about Socrates.
Okay. That's
That's
fun.
as far as I get, yeah.
Yeah. It's great to bring, yeah, all of these different people from different ages too into philosophy.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people don't know how good they are at philosophy. So I always tell young people if they're smart aleck, that actually is kind of a proclivity in philosophy. So, sometimes you get in big trouble if you're smart aleck, but it's like, okay, maybe you should be a philosopher if you're smart aleck. It's like Socrates was very smart aleck. I do convince them of that.
That's interesting. And yeah, I'm curious as to your thoughts on philosophy, Stoicism related to critical thinking skills, because, in academia and other places too, like being an engineer, that's, so important to be able to think independently. So I know we're detouring a little bit from the question, but
No, I mean, not to me, because that's what I've been working on this past year before my husband died. I was presenting on how the methods of a really good critical thinking approach, like there's a couple textbooks that take this approach, they really focus on sentences in arguments, kind of short 4 or 5 sentence arguments. And I've been suggesting that that might be the kind of missing example of how to practically reason in ancient Stoicism, where maybe it was just taken for granted. That's how we reason. I look sometimes at like arguments that Epictetus uses as an example, like someone thinking through something, and they can be very simple. So I've been arguing that we can develop our virtue through developing critical thinking. But critical thinking means so many things to so many people. I'm trying to be specific by even pointing to a textbook, by even pointing to my midterms, my final exam. It's like, here's exactly what I mean by critical thinking. But yeah, I really see an overlap.
yeah, yeah, that's great. Like Marcus Aurelius said, everything is, interconnected in different ways. And, with Stoicism, a lot of it is to, help the greater good and, make things better for everyone. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's how it's not like individualism. Even
Yes.
it can seem like the bad marketing makes it seem like it's this individualist approach, I guess, to improving your own life. But yeah, that's just not, it's not your own life that you're focused on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, I want to kind of go into that a little bit too, in terms of people's perceptions of Stoicism, how it's used as a connotation or colloquial today versus the ancient philosophy from, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus. But this may seem obvious to you, but would love to, have your thoughts be shared with everyone. Why isn't Stoicism a masculine trait? Like, why can't it be for women at all?
Well, if as long as, women also reason in a practical way that results in decisions, then we're in. It just absolutely applies to us if we think and critically think about what we believe and what we should do. So we do that. So it applies. I think we think it doesn't apply because the ancient Greeks didn't really think of women as much of anything. And, it was just such a shockingly stratified society. I mean, I can't even get my mind around the weird hierarchies that they had in place. So that, they shouldn't be our example of whether women were included. They thought lots of things we can't relate to anymore. And then I noticed this on your website. It's such a good point. I actually hadn't seen it before. But in some cultures, I know in some cultures, girls have to stay quiet, but women have to stay quiet till they're alone. But like in the culture I was raised in, women kind of are in charge of social relations, so they have to be friendly and chatty. And so if we associate men with Stoicism and not women with Stoicism, we might think that that dictionary definition of Stoic, like a lowercase Stoic, a very quiet, shy,
Emotionless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who only takes action once in a while. We might associate that with this ethics, but that's
It's a
you can
complete.
be like that and be ethical, but you just don't have to be. Like that doesn't have to be your personality.
Yes, yes, exactly. And yeah, back in the day too, like, women weren't really included in other subjects too, like math and science,
Yeah,
algebra,
yeah, there's
geometry,
no,
physics, chemistry.
yeah,
But yeah, obviously all of us know.
yeah, we can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
women can do it. There's no gender to it.
I feel so old when I say this, but my students sometimes have to be reminded that, like, my teachers used to say and believe that the girls were bad at math. So the
Oh,
younger generation, they're like, nobody ever thought that. I'm like, they thought that. They definitely thought that. But the girls are so good at math these days. They're like, there's no way. I'm like, it wasn't that long ago when I was in school. That was like,
oh,
all the
wow.
teachers made that very clear. They were surprised if the girls were good at math. So things
Yeah,
change
thanks for bringing
quickly.
that up because yeah, that is such a stark contrast to, how empowered we are in a lot of ways today. Yeah, we
Yeah.
take these things for granted, like obviously.
No, we do.
Uh,
I have a funny joke, but it's true. One time I was taking one of my kids to the doctor, and another one of them said, I don't think the doctor's in the room, as they looked in and they go, because it's an old man. And so they had only seen women doctors.
Oh, that's
Like,
great.
that can't be the doctor. It's not a young woman. So I thought
I
that
thought
was,
you were going to go the other way with that example because sometimes that's
no, it's like it's flipped for them. So that's wonderful.
yeah, yeah, it really is. And I guess there's still some of that, breaking, I guess, stereotypes today with coding because, obviously women and men can code, but still there's like so many more male coders and engineers in different fields too. So,
Yeah. I think Stoicism's really healthy if it gets applied to those issues today because you just don't, Marcus Aurelius has some great passages on this, but you just don't focus on those things external to someone's character, and their intentions and their morality. So to make a big deal out of someone's gender is just to be wrong. That's
yeah.
the big deal. So, yeah, I like how Stoicism makes people friendly.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a way to like bridge divides. And it's such an easy one once you use it. As long as you realize like the things that, society might tell you matters don't matter to you, then you're kind of free as a Stoic. And it's amazing how often the ancients, like Marcus Aurelius, will articulate that as strange as his life was, same kind of thing that would benefit us today.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then, yeah, a little bit about that too, in terms of personalities that different people who are Stoic have. Like a lot of people, as you said before, I think the Stoics were quiet, or being Stoic means being quiet and silent and strong. But even the original Stoics, they actually wrote and talked a lot. Like,
Yeah, they sure did.
yeah,
Yeah, they did a lot of journaling.
yeah, and letters to friends with Seneca.
Yeah, long letters to friends. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a wall of text over and
Wall
over.
of text, yeah. It's more than a wall of text. It's literally like pages.
That is a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
100 and
some
something letters to send it to his friend Lucilius or something.
Yeah, they went on and on. Yeah, I mean, one way, even if you have, I'm forgetting the scholar who works on it, but someone, it might be Chris Gill, they've done a good job of explaining, you can have different personas, and that doesn't have anything to do with your morality. And you can also play different roles. There's a really nice dissertation on Epictetus that focuses on Epictetus as a Stoic talked a lot about the content we get from our roles. So like if you're a mother, you have certain duties. If you're a friend, you have certain duties. You can change them and make them ethical, but you still have them. But the way that Stoics are silent, even though you can be chatty like some of those ancients were, is I do think of it as instructing us to not do a lot of things, like to not take vengeance when you can, to not take cheap shots. I mean, I don't even think you should gossip maybe, on a Stoic account. And I always use an example with my students of if your roommate's diary is open, do they call them diaries anymore? I guess computer.
Yeah. Diary journals. Yeah.
Like a Stoic would shut it.
Hmm.
I've got another example where, I mean, trying to relate to the students, they usually laugh at this example, but when you break up with someone and they write you that really angry letter, kind of like they're going to take it out on you with words or email or whatever. A Stoic would toss it without looking at it or just delete it to keep them from being embarrassed. And that's a lot of self-control. And I do think of that as kind of a kind of silence,
Yeah.
People might not blame you if you get angry and key someone's car after they break up with you, but a Stoic would not do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, a little bit about what a Stoic would do. It's about doing the right thing and taking
Uh-huh.
right action. Correct.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, in terms of embarrassment, I think, and yeah, we can get into like emotions a little bit too, but correct me if I'm wrong, but my interpretation is, it's not that you should suppress emotions like the small s Stoic, but you should have emotions, but just in moderation, making sure that it is, good for other people as well as good for yourself. And yeah, like bring some discipline to your emotions, or is that?
Yes. Yeah. So one way, I mean, there is room in Stoicism for suggesting you should moderate emotions, however we do that. But the line I push for contemporary Stoicism is that I think Julia Annis and Martha Nussbaum have really explained this well, but it's that your beliefs are what lead to emotion. So by the time you're having an emotion, like you feel jealous or angry, it's too late because you're believing something. So it's really hard to just stop believing something. But like if you're angry, I think Martha Nussbaum uses the example, I love this, of being angry at children. And she's against it. I'm against it too, but I had never seen someone against it before. It's such bullying, like you're so mean to children and they can't be mean back to you. You wouldn't do it to an adult, it's sketchy. And she points out that there's some belief that you can treat children in a way you can't treat adults. There are a bunch of beliefs there if you're cruel or angry with children. And so if you're angry at a 2-year-old or a second grader for making a mess, yeah, you can't remove those beliefs right then. They can go back to your childhood. But the Stoic advice is figure out what you're believing wrong. Like, why would you be mad at a second grader for making a mistake when you don't even get mad at 32-year-olds in your life who make a mistake? And why do you think it's okay to take advantage of your power as an older, stronger person? Like, you can really use the emotion to self-analyze.
Okay, okay. With that example, I guess I don't I don't have children at this point, but I thought the general way to behave would be the opposite, where, people give their children, like babies, more leniency because they're babies and children. But maybe it's a type of thing that only parents understand, of like just being very frustrated.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, yeah, I was glad that Nussbaum wrote about it because it's like, yeah, that's a common thing people don't talk about that much. Yeah, but a lot of parents do get angry at children, and we just assume it's natural. But the Stoics are so good at getting us questioning natural cruelty. It's like they have other criteria. Like even if everyone's always done it forever because it's a philosophical ethic, you can rethink. You can come up with better ideas.
Yeah.
Works out better. Something that makes you
Yeah.
like yourself more too. So you're more consistent.
Yeah, really drilling down into like, yeah, the belief, as you said, or gaining clarity and understanding and
And
critical
trusting
thinking skills.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're angry, you're out of control. I mean, we describe it that way. And, so the Stoics don't think that feels good. Or, I mean, Aristotle says there's a kind of pleasure in it, but you won't like yourself or trust yourself that much if you know you can get out of control. And that's how you manipulate other people. So yeah, they're against emotions because they see them as like anger.
Yeah, there's a difference between, yeah, feeling it and kind of understanding it and working with it versus like
Yeah.
feeling it and then not articulating it and having
Yeah.
it kind of destroy.
Right. Yeah, you would never,
Like,
a Stoic would never want to ignore their emotions because it's like great information.
mhm.
It's just like,
Yeah, it is
what
great.
is going on
Yeah,
here? Like,
they're more
why am I
rational about it.
jealous?
Yeah.
Why am I insecure? Why do I have imposter syndrome? It's like there are explanations.
Mhm.
I mean, cognitive behavior therapy was inspired by Stoicism, and people who have had that really relate to this. Like you work backwards. So
Yeah.
once you have an emotional stressor, you can work backwards and see what led to it.
And ask why. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. So many questions popped up into my mind.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I guess in terms of anger, yeah, like feeling emotions, the positive emotions, happy, joyful, excited, versus quote unquote worse emotions like anger, jealousy. How does the manifestation of that also compare, in your opinion, on Buddhism? And I guess I want to share a little bit first in this question. But for Buddhism, it's very much about nonviolence, correct? And with Stoicism, is violence okay in some situations? Like Marcus Aurelius, he was an emperor and did lead, I think, the Marcomannic Wars. So what are your thoughts in terms of that?
Well, that's a great example. I've been trying to learn about Buddhism. It's very hard. And it's hard because there are overlaps with Stoicism, so it's like, where
Yeah.
does the overlap end? So I've been asking every Buddhist I know, and every one seems to be more helpful than the next. And one of the most recent things I heard is like, they were, I think, quoting the Dalai Lama, but they were like, we're here to end suffering wherever it is. Oh, so beautiful. So your own suffering, other suffering. And when you think about it, the Stoics are not like that. That's just not, they just are going to kind of expect you to deal with the suffering. It's just not on their list of to-dos. We're supposed to have a harmonious society. There's supposed to be justice. So that would reduce a lot of suffering. But I'm trying to think from a Stoic perspective. A lot of our suffering is maybe fated. So that's part of their old metaphysics. It's probably still relevant to the view. And I even think ethically helpful sometimes, but also not understood properly. Like one thing Marcus Aurelius says is that even our deaths have to be good because they were designed, so if any of this is good, then our deaths are good too. So we really get the wrong idea about what's
Amor fati?
yeah, right.
Okay. Okay.
And so like if you like a little bit of fate, you should like all of fate.
Yeah.
But for the Stoics, think of that, like suffering has been such a part of history. And the Stoics are saying it's a good design. So to me, that is like such a huge difference between Buddhism and Stoicism.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like the responsibility with Buddhism is to alleviate suffering.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and with Stoicism is doing the right thing when and where you can, like at the right time. And that's with
it's
faith.
very limited. Yeah. And deal with suffering. It's kind of the message is kind of like deal with it.
Deal with it. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting reading about, Epictetus used to be enslaved. So he has a lot of, I guess, suffering that he tolerated and really.
Yes. Yeah. Sounds like he was tortured. Yeah. So, I know people criticize Buddhism for this too, being a little passive before world events. But the Stoics have been accused of that too for a long time. I think the term is kind of old fashioned, but Quietism. So some people have criticized that enslaved people helped write Stoicism because they're like, it should have been more of an emergency that anyone was enslaved. Like it shouldn't have been something that was accepted even for a little bit.
We touched on this briefly, but I'm curious as to your thoughts. I know there's a lot of different personalities in terms of extroverted, introverted who can be stoic. But have you observed or noticed any differences between how men and women kind of display stoicism? Even with the extroverted, men and women can be extroverted, introverted, but like, have you noticed other ways where they kind of manifest differently?
Yeah, I might have missed this, but I have never seen someone argue that women are more stoic than men, but I would like to argue it. Because first of all, like we can't be fooled by just like feats of strength or something like that. So it's not how many push-ups you can do. That's just literally not it. And then when it comes to the threats and insults that women get, I'm lucky to have a lot of close friends that are men, and we're so similar except for our gender and like kind of the way the world treats us. So we can compare notes so easily. And my husband was a really good feminist, and they constantly point out to me how insulted women are. Like it'll be conversations other men only have with them, but then they'll tell me. And then my son also growing up, he would just burst out laughing if someone said it's hard for boys these days because he heard they're so cruel to young girls. Like, you know, they're just, and I mean, maybe people would say young girls are cruel to boys, but I overhear those conversations without them hiding them from me, and it's not the same. So, like when my husband would walk down the street, he didn't feel afraid. But if I would walk down the same street by myself, I felt very afraid. I had to use like tactics, and you know, I know my daughters feel afraid. They get approached all the time by older men, you know, and have to say things like, I'm just in high school. And my son, I let him travel around Europe by himself at 15 because I was like, no, but he's like got no natural predator, I think, at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, definitely.
So the men in my life are always pointing that out to me. And then I also want to say that women are stoic in ways we just don't notice or compliment. So I think I told you this earlier, but this is kind of stoic, but a friend of mine was taking me to an ice bath, you know, kind of like a trend. And I went with her and we were so cold and we were scared to go all the way down. Like it was just too cold. But then I took my children and two of them are very grown, you know, so it's an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old. My 20-year-old's huge. He's like 6'4". I don't worry that much about him. But they were around all these strangers and making conversation. So I was attentive to how they were doing, worried about, you know, if they felt socially awkward or not, this ice pool, you know, with strangers. And it made me not feel the cold. So I noticed like, I'm like to my neck in it. And I just think women are stoic like that. Like that's very complicated. Like I somehow decided pain wasn't bad. You know, I somehow decided that how my body felt didn't matter at that moment. I made no judgment about it and I'm focused on my kids.
Your
But
responsibilities, yeah.
that's just how mothering is all the time. I mean, I think fathering can be like that too, but if women are doing that all the time for their friends or family, that's very stoic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really stoic.
I have one friend in the military and he makes fun of that example because he's like, that's not that brave to just but I would still like to argue it's,
Yeah.
you know, my husband was not scared walking around. Women are, so women are braver more often.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, just what you hear about what mothers do for their children and how
Yeah.
they, even through like the natural process of birth and, you know, getting pregnant
No.
and all of
Yeah.
that suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot, you know.
I do have to say, I was not stoic about childbirth. I endured it, but I had no belief to make it okay. I should have in retrospect, but I suffered through it. I was a complete non-stoic.
Oh, that's okay.
It was too painful. I'm not sure Stoicism goes that far.
It's okay. We can talk about this too, but the Stoics cried too.
Yeah.
Talked about crying. And yeah, I know you recently went through a very sad and difficult experience with your husband passing away. So yeah, if you wanted to share on that too, you can.
Well, you know, still going through it. And the Stoics don't mind anything you do that we might categorize as emotions that doesn't involve a belief. So some of when someone dies that you like I love my husband so much, more than myself, I think. Losing someone like that is so physical a phenomenon. So there's a new book, I think it's called What Grief Does to Your Body, but it just gathers some of the medical research on it. So your brain gets very confused because you're kind of, you know their footsteps and you like are looking for them all over. And your chance of dying is really high right after a loved one dies.
Oh no, Jen.
Yes.
Be safe.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've passed the danger zone,
Okay.
but my children and I felt our hearts hurting, which, you know, I might have like brushed off before, but my husband's died of a heart attack. So now I'm like, okay, a heart hurting is actually a thing. If you go into a scan, they can see that your heart is stressed after a loss. So the Stoics don't hold us accountable for physical reactions to things. So if you cry, and now I've processed so much of his death that I just cry from every day and there are no real thoughts attached to it. So I'm not maintaining false beliefs. So the Stoics would be totally uninterested. It'd be like my heart, you know, beating too fast for a couple months. You know, that's not something we can control. It's just physical. It'd be like your foot reacting to getting cut or snubbed or something. But the Stoic advice on grief is something I kind of explored. I'm not crazy about it. So I got this from Cicero and I really tried to I mean, maybe it's better than I'm making it sound, but because I think my daughter followed it just naturally without reading Cicero. He says, even though he grieved, he says when you grieve, it's because of false beliefs again. So maybe you thought the person would live forever. With my husband, I did think, I mean, I thought I couldn't live without him. I mean, I think you do think like that's what you actually believe.
And there's
And
nothing wrong with that. It's like part of attachment theory and, this
yeah.
side.
That's what my daughter said. She said it's okay to believe those things and then you lose hope or they become false and then you just start again. You just believe false things again. But the Stoics kind of want us to get rid of the things that cause the bad grief. So they
True.
want us to be like kind of ready for people to die all the time.
I think
Honestly,
Epictetus, yeah, he said that
yeah.
in his lectures. Yeah, like don't be too sad if your wife dies. And I was literally talking to my team about it since we're working on Stoicism for women and how it would be interesting to switch that. But it's sad, obviously both ways. But yeah, to prepare, like envision what would happen if your spouse dies, your kid dies, and
It
just
could make you love people more. I mean, it could make you like appreciate the person more. It could be every day you have with them is special. And I do think grievers sometimes are like, oh, if only we were pretty loving. So I don't think we have those regrets. But like
oh,
a lot of people have those regrets. Like if I had only known, then I would have. But
yeah.
that part's good. But there is something I think negative. The reason I'm kind of criticizing it is that I don't deny any of that. I have changed my beliefs. Like his grief has changed beliefs. I even with my identity, I thought now I have no identity. I mean, so I've kind of, you just kind of live through it. And then I guess those beliefs I had don't maintain anymore. I'm not sure I've replaced them. But I prefer Buddhism on grief because it's
Okay.
such a comfort.
Yeah.
And every Buddhist I know, I get intimidated because there's so many types of Buddhism, but the practicing Buddhists I know who grew up with it, they're always like, it's all the same. So I'm always like, what type are you talking? What type are you talking about? They're like, stop, it's all the. But Buddhists have been telling me how we should be grieving all the time. It's just so beautiful.
Mhm.
And it makes it so normal.
Yeah.
And horrible things do happen all the time. And we do lose things we are attached to all the time. And I don't know, that's been comforting to me in a way, the Stoic, like, what did you believe wrong? It's just not that comforting. It
Yeah.
might be right, but it's
Yeah, it
not
is
comforting.
true. And the Stoics they had strict standards for themselves in some ways. And Seneca did say, he grieved for his friend and I don't think he said cried. I think he said like wept uncontrollably more than he should have.
Yeah.
And he kind of admonishes himself for doing so. So it's interesting that there's all this baggage around crying and grief, even then a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think with Stoicism, it is about moderation, but also just not hurting the greater good. So
Yeah.
you can grieve, but if your grief, takes you too far into despair and you're like hurting everyone around you and yourself, like you're
That's
not
right.
being good to yourself, and then it's time to kind of like change your beliefs a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that you just put that so well. So, yeah, Seneca worries about his mom grieving for too long. So it's not the grieving, it's just you can't ruin the rest of your life grieving. So it's like there could be a season to it, but it's just how you put it is so perfect. You have other things you need to do and for other people. So at a certain point, it seems like a lack of gratitude that you're here and then not taking advantage of being alive. Like as
Yeah.
bad as you think death is, Marcus Aurelius has a lot of influences. So getting ready to talk to you, I saw some passage where he was like, I mean, it was such an interesting argument. I want to put it on the board in critical thinking, but it was something like the gods are good, the God who designed the universe is good, and they designed death. So the fact that we just vanish and disappear must be good somehow. But you could tell like the pain of like we just vanish, just like
Yeah.
who designed this for us? But even if you think that's horrible, death is horrible, you can still be at the same time, it can make you take advantage of every day you have. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's horrible, but here you are not dead. Okay, that's a big difference.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of truisms, and I talk about that too with my team to be careful not to equate Stoicism with, random truisms you see in the internet and like on Instagram. But I think, yeah, even Seneca says in that same section that, yeah, when you grieve, you are sad for your friend, and you should grieve a little. You should shed some tears, he even says. But yeah, to value the people who are alive, and make sure you appreciate that too. So it's not just
Yeah.
like a cliche, like value what you have. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The Stoics don't want you to suffer, which, yeah, they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's an overlap. How interesting.
And then I do want to wrap up pretty soon. But before that, I was curious to hear if you had in mind a couple of women, like a woman or two, who embodied the qualities of Stoicism without necessarily having known of the word or, philosophy.
I think of like my best friends and my sister who also passed away. And one quality they had was they didn't lie and they didn't like liars. And they also just didn't lie. So they would sometimes like not answer questions rather than lie. And I mean, I always thought that was a good example of everyday stoicism, like to be the kind of person that you could know wouldn't lie. And I like women who are kind of cool. I mean, that word cool, like Harper. But I think that's underexplored as overlapping with stoicism. Like there's something about being cool where you're not really anxious about, you don't care what other people think. You kind of maintain your dignity.
Having gravitas, kind of.
Yeah. So I see a lot of the women I like to be around are very stoic.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. And they may or may not, well, they know you, so they probably know the word, but they may not have grown up, being taught Stoicism.
Oh,
But they
yeah,
just,
no, there's no way. Yeah, and they don't read my stuff, that's for sure. And then one other thing I wanted to say is that there's so much interest in self-help, I guess for a long time now, but it seems like there's some self-help that women are drawn to. And if I had to sum it up, it's like a way to overcome insecurity. Does that sound right? Like women are attracted to self-help that helps them feel better about themselves or
improving themselves. Yeah.
yeah. And I just think Stoicism or any kind of full philosophy is such a better toolkit. So
Yeah.
you're thinking about truisms, but I try to look at some of the self-help and some of the claims are just not connected. So it's just like, okay, I could just memorize this like dogma, but Stoicism could really encourages you to work out like why should you feel insecure? Why should you feel inadequate? Why
Right.
should you? I think one reason people don't think women are Stoics is because we get judged so much on like external things, our appearance and stuff. So then if we care about our appearance, it seems like we aren't serious. That's so unfair. It's such a little
Yeah.
trap.
Yeah. They're not related. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like we get influenced by the world and get blamed by that, blamed
And
for
so,
that. But
yeah.
Stoicism can help you figure all that out.
Mhm. And yeah, with a lot of the self-help stuff, there's a lot of shame inherently attached to it too. Like you need to help yourself because not suck, but you're not that great for some reason, or you're not as good as you could be. Whereas Stoicism isn't so much about like do better. It's more like just do the right thing to begin with. Like I
That
kind
is
of like
such a good
using this quote.
point.
So, oh, thank you.
I try and say sometimes that Stoicism can seem like really high standards, but it's lower standards than other like hodgepodge bits of advice.
Right. And
And the
it
way you
really
put
values
that,
critical thinking skills, like
yeah, right.
thinking for yourself. And I really love this quote, not a stoic in the traditional sense, but Yoda from from Star Wars. He says, do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah,
And I think that's very stoic. Like,
yeah.
don't try to do the right thing. Like, just do the right
Do
thing.
the right thing. And
Yeah.
of course you won't do it perfectly, but who cares? You get credit for doing it. Yeah, I love that. And the shame, like if you don't mind one more story, I think I had a bunch of little kids and I went to the hairdresser and my hair was a mess and the hairdresser was so mad at me and he was just like, you got to take care of yourself. You got to and so there's like a worldly idea of what taking care of yourself is. And then there's what you think you should be doing. And the Stoics give you more confidence in the face of a world that might want to have you do a list of accomplishments so that you're better than other people, which leads to not much, maybe emptiness once you even achieve that temporarily. And Stoicism is suggesting that you can feel comfortable with yourself like a sister to everyone on the planet. And that's so much better, I think, than
Yeah.
take care of yourself all the time. You.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care of your soul. You don't need to care about
That's
whatever external.
yes, yeah. You don't have to take care of your hair. Take care of your soul. Maybe your kids too, and then your
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I do want to wrap it up a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much, Jen, for
Oh,
coming.
thank you. I love these topics. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And
And
you have been
again,
so friendly all throughout and such a good example how someone can be stoic and feminine and friendly and nice.
sometimes I get made fun of for not being that feminine, but in some ways I am. And philosophy is just like useless if we don't get to talk about it. So I appreciate I mean, you made some points I will not forget in this short conversation.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you. So I'm going to end this and then also I want to kind of wrap up after stopping the recording.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm still learning how to live more stoically every day. If you are too, then you found the right place. Stay tuned with the Feminine Stoic. And if this resonated with you, maybe share it with someone who needs it too. Thank you.